As content marketers, there's something about an empty month when you're just starting to plan and those days just sort of lie out one after the other. They all need to be filled with compelling, strategic, and interesting content. If only there were some way that content could just multiply. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh,
So
sure would.
my colleague Kristen and I are going to talk today about content multiplier and how we use the content multiplier strategy that we have created to basically multiply pieces of content and fill up our calendar with using just a couple of ideas. So my name is Erika Dickstein with Spring Insights.
And I'm Kristen Cudd, also with Spring Insight.
Awesome. So first of all, let's start out talking about, Kristen, what is our content multiplier strategy? What is the strategy that we're using?
So basically, when you're thinking about multiplying your content to reach further with doing less hours, less work, less idea generation, because part of the problem is coming up with ideas, right? And maybe you've got a really great one. So how can you make sure that you leverage it in multiple ways? So it's really about having a foundational topic or theme and using that central hub or piece or idea and multiplying it so that it goes out onto various platforms in various different formats so that it can be taken in by as many people as possible and seen in different ways.
So let's talk about, as an example, let's talk about this video. Because this video that we're creating right now, you might, if you're watching it, think, okay, yeah, you're creating a video. But this video is going to provide us, I probably should have done the math before we got on here, but I think probably somewhere around 10 customer touch points that will come directly just from this video. So let's talk about what those are. So there's obviously this video, which is going to appear on YouTube.
Yep, there's this video itself. From there, we will take this video and we will cut it up into multiple shorts that touch on small pieces and bite-sized bits of information. And just as an aside, we all are aware that YouTube loves shorts, and so you can potentially reach a larger audience simply by virtue of having content labeled as a short on that platform.
Yeah, that's a whole different video, but one day we should do one about the numbers that you reach using the shorts versus the actual longer video, because people don't have the patience to watch what will be a stimulating video of 15 minutes of Kristen and I talking about this, but us talking about the shorter pieces that people are totally willing to give up the time for. So yeah. So, and by the way, then each of those can create lots of social media pieces.
Exactly. Every single short can be its own social media post.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose, it can also point people towards the longer video so that you're getting more eyes on that piece of content as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so we also we will use this to create a blog as well. In our case, we do that with the help with generative AI as well as copywriters. So we will basically just use the foundation, what we talked about here, to create a blog post that will go onto our website. We talked about the social media pieces. And then finally, which by the way, the social media pieces, I should say, that point to the video, that display the shorts, and also that promote the blog post, right? So you've
Exactly.
got all kinds of social media that can point people depending on what their best modality is. Mm-hmm. It points to different places. And then finally,
we're still not done. Yeah,
we're still not done.
It's still multiplying. So we can take any of those pieces, whether it be the blog post, whether it be the whole full-length video, whether it be certain clips that we choose, we can insert those pieces into either our regular newsletters that we send out, or if we want to focus on a particular topic and send it out as an email to our list, then boom, we have yet another way, another platform to reach our audience and give them content in the way they would like to see it.
And you know, the craziest part about this is that we have just given this long list of ways that the content multiplier can work, and we haven't exhausted the list. There are a number of things that we know that we could do that we actually either haven't accomplished yet or are just not within our strategy. So I'll take the first one, which is a podcast. You can actually take the YouTube, the audio, particularly from ours, because we're not really showing off anything. There's not really, I mean, obviously people would miss our lovely curls, but they wouldn't, but there's not a lot of content that they would miss if they weren't watching this. This could absolutely be a podcast, short podcast. So that's number one that you can take. And that takes pretty much almost no additional, it certainly doesn't take any additional idea generation. It does take a little bit of extra tech and a little bit of extra time, but you're not in the creation piece, just in the manipulation piece.
And then along those same lines, if you already have a podcast, if a podcast is one of the main ways that you communicate with your audience, and you have success with it or not, you're just starting out, then that can be your basis for creating video content. And by that, I mean, it may not be, I mean, people do film their podcast and then put that up as a video, but you can also do lots of fun things on the design side of things where you've got the audio playing as a video clip, and then it's captions or it's graphics that are coming up to help people follow along as they're listening to it. So it can be video content, and it can also, just as we would use video as a basis to create blog content, social pieces, you can cut up different clips from the podcast. You can create an entire article around whatever you spoke about in the podcast episode. And so do something very similar where we're using a video as a basis, using the podcast as a basis instead.
Absolutely. And so on that same note, webinars. So you could just as easily, we're using, just as you talked about, what are you using as the basis? We're using a video. You could use a webinar as a basis very, very easily. Do this live, invite your audience, have people interact with you. You can then take that, right? This is a topic that you want to talk about. You then take that webinar, right? And you create the same assets that we've been talking about, and it can create every single one of the items that we're talking about that you could then use in this same way. So one webinar could very easily, particularly since those are even longer, one webinar could create a month's worth of topics, because now one webinar is probably going to give you 2 or 3 videos and who knows how many shorts and all of those other pieces that follow.
Exactly. And all of the production and creative work that went into producing the webinar can, for the most part, be repurposed. If you've got a slide deck and you've got all your different sections of your presentation lined out, those are almost perfectly suited to cutting up into smaller bits for each section. And you've already got some great visuals that can accompany your messaging.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, the next one that we'll talk about in terms of things that, again, we aren't doing, but this one actually I kind of really want to look more into, guest blogs. I mean, this is such a no-brainer. This is basically if you have somebody who is in a complementary field and you trade sort of access to, hey, I'll feature you in a blog sometime if you feature me, and you're looking, it's a link exchange, but the nice kind of link exchange, not the kind of link exchange that gets Google upset, right? But where you're giving valuable information that on somebody else's blog that links back to yours, right? So you've created some content. You don't want to make it the same exact blog that you've done for yourself if you've done one, but if you're not doing a blog for yourself, yeah, totally do it for somebody else, or modify it slightly, maybe industry specific, for somebody who's in a related field.
Absolutely. And just getting that different perspective on your site and to your audience, your community will appreciate that as well. And there's so many benefits to it. And as basing it on just the multiplier aspect, you haven't done anything but invite this person to share and maybe provide a little
Well,
direction of what they may talk about.
you talked about it in a little bit of a different direction. I'm talking, you're saying invite people on as a guest blog on yours. I was saying do a guest blog on somebody else's. So
Right.
using yeah,
It
absolutely.
goes both ways.
hmm Um, awesome. And then finally, longer form content. So this might be if you want to create a full white paper or
Mhm.
if you want to create an ebook. This is sort of if you have a topic that is big enough. And a lot of these topics a lot of these topics you really can go very, very deep. And that means you have a downloadable for your site or something that you can use, as like sort of a honeypot to get somebody to give you more information, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So you've put a lot of time and energy and effort into creating what, we would say a longer form piece of content. And there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't take different bits of that and cut them up and repurpose them in this very way. And then you're getting more out of what you've already put together.
Awesome. So, I mean, looking back to where we started on this, if you're looking at that big blank canvas,
And going,
imagine exactly, instead of looking at this big blank canvas and thinking to yourself, oh my God, how do I fill this? You just really think about one, right? Think about one broad topic that you can then create content that you're going to multiply to fill up that entire space.
exactly.
Awesome. Kristen, this was so much fun.
It
Thank you
was
so much for
always a
joining with
pleasure.
me and chatting about Content Multiplier and how we take one hopefully great idea
Hmm.
and fill up our content calendars with it. And if you've joined us and are watching this and not just the short, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel. We put out content every single Tuesday about, for subject matter experts, always about either marketing strategy, as we did today, about website creation, about site maintenance, but really about how you keep your online presence relevant, interesting, and etc. So if you want to be the first to know when we put out new content, subscribe and please come to our site if you're interested in working with us. We'd love to set up some time to chat with you about what your business does and if we can help. Thanks so much.
Thanks.